Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me. It is a true pleasure to be back in Greece because I started my career as a young engineer in the late or mid-90s building bridges for Egnatia Odos in the north of Greece. I have been sailing more than 10 times here, and I had my honeymoon in Greece, so it's good to be back. So I was asked to give feedback about what we have learned, and I want to be straight to the point and definitely not politically correct. So the first thing is that we have experience from the UK, France, Italy, Norway, Korea, and California so far, and we have been down selected for 6 projects. We have 1 floater in the water, southeast of Montpellier, test project, and the next one will now be built for the UK. And what we have learned that's similar with all the countries is that there are not enough resources in the government. And therefore the government needs to make sure that they have enough people that actually can do the work. Nobody says this, but it's eminent that in every country we see the same delay due to lack of resources. The second thing is that we need to get, and I'm not talking as a supplier of foundations, I'm just looking down from 30,000 feet now. We need to get the government to give us a pipeline of opportunities, so we know that next year we will get another 0.5 gigawatt, and then 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. It's very easy to say for politicians, and we have the same in Norway, they say the supply chain is not ready. Well, tell us what you want by when specifically, and the developers will be ready. Thirdly, as I had a very simple drawing, I have another slide for that. We need to understand how the cost will develop, and I come back to that. Today there are 120 or 130 floater design companies, and to entertain you a little bit, there must be 120, 30 people like me that say we have the best system, right? And that is obviously not true, and I believe that within the next 3, 4, 5 years, there will be a handful of steel floaters and 1 or 2 concrete floaters, and that's it. So there will be a consolidation. And last but not least, we need to understand that this is a summer installation industry. So every time politicians say, now we just have 1 more month, that 1 more month very easily can translate into we just lost another year. Because if we cannot install it this summer, then it will be next summer. I was in Bilbao and had dinner with an oil company that wanted to become an energy company, and now they are back to only oil and gas. So you can guess who that was. And that gentleman said, what do I need to do so that you can tell me how you can reduce the price by 50% between now and 2030? Because it was dinner, I said, give me 500,000 euros in 6 months and we will do that. And we got the job, and we did a very thorough analysis. And what is the result? There are many results, but the most important result of the cost development is that if you build 1 unit, the price per megawatt is 6.1 million. Everything for the first one is super expensive. The crane you need 10 weeks to assemble it, you do 1 lift, then the towers, then the cell and the blades, and that's it. That obviously has an enormous per megawatt input if you do 1. If you do 4 to 6, you see how dramatically the cost drops. And then my engineers calculated that if we do 37 or more from 1 mobilization yard, then we will be at around 1.4 million euros per megawatt. And what's important to execute now is we need to get demonstrators so that we jump as quickly as possible over phase 1 and 2, and that will require governmental support. And this morning there was a gentleman somewhere over there who had the best question that I've heard. How can we make money? That's super important. We need to get funding from the government so that the developers can do the first 2 steps, and then the cost will come down. I truly believe that. What else can we think about in terms of experience transfer? Well, it is the auction rounds in the UK. In 2022, the CFD price in the UK was stated as £122 per megawatt. There were 2 offers for floating wind, one of which came in with a ridiculous low offer of 87. They were awarded, and there was no non-performance penalty, so they actually don't need to build that. So then the politicians learned, the price is not 122, it's somewhere around 90, and slowly reduced it to 116. So in auction round 5, nobody submitted a bid. Not for floating and not for bottom fixed. And we are supporting 3 developers, and we went to Edinburgh and to London, and we showed them the cost of this is how much it costs. If you do it next year the same with 116, you will get the same answer. Nobody is building it. And now, last week, as you most likely have read, the revised prices are on bottom fixed up by 61%, on floating up 52%. Now we are at £176 per megawatt for floating, which is a 2012 price, so it needs to be adjusted on top of it. Fun fact, several developers had meetings with the Crown Estate and with the politicians in 21 and 22 and 23, and they said the same thing every time. So my recommendation is listen to the developers and listen to the industry. And then, last but not least, I think it's important to think about standardization. This is not like the oil and gas industry that you build one of every time. This is more like the car industry, in my opinion. So going forward, I think, I don't know, if I think about BMW, we'll have a 3, a 5, and a 7 series, and one X5, and they will do the job for most of the locations. Depending on what you said, Meteo, yeah, yes. So we believe that a Lego system approach that we have will help. We need to have standardized systems for the floaters, for the moorings, and for the material. We will need to think new. We have to go away from chain only and use fiber ropes instead. We need to be able to do as much as possible locally. What you see here is a rendering for about 250 megawatt. In Moreld, we are 3,500 people. We do about $1 billion in revenue. And in Moreld Ocean Wind, we design, together with OCG in France, the floater. What we saw earlier, I can only confirm. Most of your numbers are within reach, but from Volturnus in Maine to now, the floater has become lighter. The bearing requirements for this crane are almost the same like you have. This looks like it's an animation of a crane. In reality, this is a fully engineered Mammoth SK6000, which they start building in the spring now, and we'll have it ready by the end of 25. The floater here for 20 megawatt has 3,500 tons. For 15, we're at 2,600. We are not using ballast. Our system works different. It's the opposite. We are having compressed air that we can blow into the columns and lift it. Therefore, our depth is only 12 meters for 20 megawatt. And you see that your requirement on size, I think, is even optimistic. When we run the analysis of how to do 500 megawatt, and have transport of components that come in from the manufacturers, you will see that you will need as much as 350, 400,000 square meters to do all that. And that's not available. So then the next question is, what can we do with, say, half? And there we have examples in Greece where I think will be possible. Efkaristo.